Okay.
Abu Hanifa بيرفع ايده.
Okay, unmute yourself and come forward, Abu Hanifa.
Thank you so much, Abdurrahman. Well, there is many things that has been said. You see, fundamentally, if we are saying that we want a new era, we want to move to a new Eritrea for Eritreans, in regard of of our faith background. This land is the land of all. We can't even defeat our enemy, the common enemy that we have, if we don't understand each other, if we don't know one another. You see, in our culture, there is a common saying that it says, think of your colleague that who will take the journey before you think about the journey. Okay, who will be going with you? Who will be joining you in that journey? So this is something which is very important. There is a lot, I would say, well, the regime did not stay for all these, years because it is strong. No, but I think we were weak. And the weakness is the disunity. And this disunity came from the misunderstanding of each other and not taking the initiative, taking the effort to know one another. So I think if we want a new Eritrea, has to begin by cleaning our hearts, trying to take initiatives to embrace one another, which is very important. There is many things in our culture. I give you example. Now, when we say politicians, okay, their views and so on and so on, but it doesn't mean that they are not religious at the same time. There is politicians who are Muslims, there is politicians who are Christians, there might be others. So it is not only, it is the mosque and the church who would have influences in their, in the attendance of those places of worship. But we generally have many things that we have inherited. We did not purify, we did not clarify whether they are true or not. We have in our subconscious many things about one another that needs actually to end and, has to be stopped. Most of it leads to mistrusting one another. So I think Eritrea will come, that new Eritrea will come when we are united, when we understand one another, when we try to strengthen one another and use whatever powers that we have, whether it is the mosque, whether it is the church, okay, for the sake of unity, as well at the same time without compromising the most important principles in our faith.
Thank you.
By the way, there is a small comment. In Eritrea, this is one of the good things, that we don't have different groups of Muslims. We have only one type of faith and one understanding and one practice, which is, I think, a good point for Muslims in Eritrea.
Yeah, thank you, Sheikh Abu Hanifa. Reverend Johannes.
Abdulsalam, yeah. Abdulsalam? Can you hear me? Abdulsalam? Hello, تسمعني لها? Just we need probably a 10 minutes break. It's past 4:30, just to let you know.
Okay, so you're calling me Abdulsalam. I'm Abdurrahman, actually.
Abdurrahman, so yeah, we need 10 minutes break. Sorry, I do apologize.
Can I deny any break at all and just continue? Do we have to stick? Because we're running behind schedule. But it's up to you guys, because I'm almost like an intruder here.
We can change it to 5 minutes, but at least usually we give...
Just 5 minutes will be good, Ustaz Abdurrahman, okay, so people can...
breathe.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Fair enough. 5 minutes, and then we'll come back to the question and answer.
No. We need to finish question and answer, and because we have 4 presenters, and then we can also ask the same questions in the coming session.
No problem. Then those with hands raised, please be patient. So after the 5 minutes break, we'll move on to the next speakers, group of speakers. Yeah.
Abdulrahman, like
Yes.
you started, can you give the chance to Kashi Johannes first, and then we can go.
Yes, before closing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kashi Johannes, please come forward if you want to comment on any of the questions that has been asked. Reverend Johannes, unmute yourself if you're in.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I have not to comment in already answered the both of them. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Abdurrahman.
Thank you, thank you. So we have 5 minutes. It's 4:35 here in London, so we can come back at around 4:40. Yeah, 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Quick fresh air.
Thank you.
A minute.
Rahman.
Ambassador.
I actually tried to indicate that I have a short comment. I tagged the chat.
Sorry?
And then unmuted. I don't know whether I was seen or not.
No, I didn't see you. Did you want to comment?
Yeah, a brief comment.
Okay, when we come back or now during the break time? We're already counting the break time now.
Yeah. We can come back.
When we come back, because everybody is not here.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But how do I indicate, for instance?
Okay. Okay. How to indicate? We have a colleague here who is a technical guy. I'll ask him to guide you through, because I really didn't see your hands, because I can see several hands here, but none of them is yours.
Okay, how do I raise my hand? Because
Okay.
You can go to participant.
دكتور عند برهان زيك امشي لبارتيسبانت
كيف الحال؟
امشي بارتيسبانت امشي بارتيسبانت اضغط فيها وبعدين على يدك اليمين حتلقى ريز هاند.
Okay.
Please start your break time now.
Okay.
I just do this.
Yes, and then تحت حتلقى لما تلقى الليسته حتلقى تحت ريز هاند.
Okay, شفتها. Okay, raise hands.
أيوة.
Can you see it now?
Let me see. Have you just raised your hand? Yep, I can see it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're finally there. Okay. So
Okay.
have your break. We still have 4 minutes.
اهلا استاذ عبد الرحمن، ازيك؟
اهلا وسهلا. مين معي؟
عبد الرحمن ازيك؟
اهلا بك مستر اتش.
هلا حسين معك. حسين.
لا حسن، كيف الحال؟
ازيك حسين معك.
حسن.
هسه شفت هسه انا سعدت جدا بوجودكم. شفت استاذ ادريس كمان.
اهلا يا حسين، اخبارك؟
اهلا وسهلا عزيزي الغالي، ازيك؟ كيفك
ان شاء الله
انت؟
كويس، الله يخليك. استاذ عبد
والله
الرحمن
كان بودي انه الاخوه سياسيين مدني يحضروا الاخ محمد فايد، لكن اعتقد التغنية يمكن مع ياسين
ما اعرف والله، ما عندي فكره والله. محمد فايد قال لك شنو؟ محمد فايد مش الليله هو اللي معي؟
ايوه يا
مرحبا.
سلامات.
تمام والله.
كمان لها انقصد.
شوف انا كده اشوف انا على محمد فايد هسه هو الليله كنت بكلمه.
انت تلفونك نفسه هو ولا تغير كده ارسله لي؟
كويس.
انت دكتور
رحمن. Thank you very much. I think what we decided to do is instead of going to the discussions following the presenters, please, if you could hold your questions that you have, we will go straight to the presentations which come. All the working together.
All the working.
You already said that?
Can you go to introducing the speakers?
Okay. So thank you. Okay. So now we have 4 presenters which have given excellent really papers. So the first speaker will be Dr. Asia Abdelkader. Dr. Asia Abdelkader has a PhD in education science from the University of Bonn in Germany. She has worked as a gender consultant for the United Nations Development Program, where she developed manuals and conducted relevant assessment research. She was a program manager for Chief of party, and he is a country coordinator of German aid organization Kindermaz Life for Somaliland. She's also a chairwoman of the network of Eritrean women. Dr. Asia was the last to be contacted, really very short time, because previously I had communicated again also with two sisters in US, but the time and commitment and the ill health, they could not make it. So I had to approach Dr. Asia, and graciously she accepted to come with a brief paper on behalf of Network of Eritrean Women. Dr. Asia, she is very active. Last year also she gave a wonderful paper on women again. Following Dr. Asia, Dr. Muhammad Khair Umar will be coming, and Dr. Muhammad Khair Umar is a good friend of mine, former General Union of Eritrean Students affiliated to ALF Executive Committee member. Is an Eritrean Norwegian and has doctorate in veterinary science from the Norwegian School of Veterinary Science. He grew up in Western Eritrea and studied at the University of Addis and Khartoum. He has published several scientific articles in international journals in his field. Among other positions, he served as the Dean of the College of Agriculture and Aquatic Science at the University of Asmara, Eritrea, between 1992 to 1996. As I said, he was a Central Committee member of the General Union of Eritrean Students. He was a member of a group of Eritrean academics called the G13, who wrote an open letter to the President of Eritrea in 2000, calling for democratic reform. He is the author of the Dynamics of an Unfinished African Dream, Eritrea, Ancient Times to 1968, which was published just recently in 2020, and co-author of Asmara pictorial book, which shows from 1890 to 1938, which was published in 2018. He had an excellent digital archive on Eritrea, which is called hadgaitblogspot.com. Dr. Muhammad Khair, I know him from his PhD days as well. Prior to that, I know him in General Union of Eritrean Students. And then following that, Dr. Salah Ibrahim Jimeh will be speaking. Dr. Salah is an Australian citizen of Eritrean origin. He studied in Sudan, in Kassala, at the Refugee Secondary School, which was funded by UNHCR. Then he got scholarship to go to university to Egypt. Then he immigrated to Australia, where he did his bachelor's degree in physics. And then he followed at Monash University. He did his PhD. He worked in the climate and the earth sciences and published several peer-reviewed papers. He's very active. He has a passion for teaching, and he's really he speaks in radios and also different Eritrean channels. He has been an active member of the Eritrean community in Australia, and he really also conducts discussions for platform to Eritreans to come together. And then the last will be Mr. Fuqra Gaim. Fuqra is a very lively guy, currently lives in USA, where he works with Humana as a lead strategy advancement advisor. While attending Asmara University, he received scholarship to South Africa, and he did a study degree in economics and econometrics, also banking and finance. He obtained his master's in business administration in China. And Fuqra has always been engaged in multiple activities, including participating in some shape or form in Eritrean diaspora organizations to bring about change. Currently, he holds executive leaders member of Baito Yaakil USA. Specifically, he leads the Dialogue and Reconciliation Task Force. he conducts really interviews, and also he gives speeches in various American cities representing the Yaakil movement in USA. So the floor will be to Dr. Asia, and please be brief as we said before, and let us hope you become brief so that we can go to the discussions sooner. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fasaih. Dr. Asia.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Asia. As he introduced me, I'm a member of the Network of Eritrean Women based in Nairobi. So I'm going to read a bit. Please excuse me for that. In the past few years, the numbers of Eritrean women joining the Eritrean opposition groups in the diaspora has increased in numbers. Eritreans' response to the recent peace agreement with Ethiopia, the government's lack of transparency and failure to implement progressive policy have pushed many women to denounce the Eritrean government. As we know, especially in Eritrean festivals and PFDJ festivals, we see a lot of Eritrean women used for propaganda machinery, but we see a trend of women more and more denouncing the government due to the or the government's approach with Ethiopia, which is highly suspicious by many Eritreans. Despite the growing number of Eritrean women in the opposition movements, we only see very few women hold leadership. We therefore think we need to examine the absence of women in leadership position and revisit some of the gender responsive recommendation we made in the Eritrea Focus Conference in 2019. We were present there, and we have presented our concerns and grievances. The Network of Eritrean Women has observed many opposition groups do not hold space for women. The issues of gender equality and equity within opposition group need to be re-examined, therefore. And women are mainly marginalized with youth and refugee groups, and are excluded from major dialogue and discussion, or they are more or likely most of the time they come as invited guests, but never as decision makers who can make choice for themselves. So therefore, we would like to re-stress our previous recommendation on meaningful participation, whereby women have the opportunity to influence discussion, set the agenda, and make a decision within each opposition group. NEW has also observed that many opposition groups tend to be toxic and unsafe spaces for women. These toxic environment, unfortunately, are being recreated in cyberspaces. Cyber activism has become unsafe for most Eritrean women, as they are being targeted because of their gender. Women tend to keep their anonymity online in fear of being attacked in their personal lives. Therefore, we need more, because we are talking about working together, we need to see more men actively, proactively denouncing violence and targeting women in cyberspace. And we actually don't see it's always us as women coming forward to fight cyber bullying against women, but we see rarely men active in this happening. Yes, considering the recent peace agreement with Ethiopia, we would like to emphasize on Eritrean women's crucial role in peace building and conflict reconciliation processes for the future, with the reference to the UN Security Council 1325 resolution. Eritrean women should actively participate in policy development, constitutional debates, and analyzing gender-responsive peace-building approaches. In conclusion, despite the challenges Eritrean women face, we have managed to make our voices heard in different forums and conferences, TV programs, coordinating demonstrations. To mention only a few examples for this year, numbers of women-led and women-targeted programs were carried out on Eritrean TV, the Eritrean Women's Conference in DC was women-led. New reported this year in a forum organized by CEDAW on justice and gender discrimination. All these activities demonstrate that Eritrean women are in charge to bring change, not only for themselves, but for the whole society. And this is also very fine for us to have our own space. We need our own space, but when we have a common platform, we don't want to come just as guests and present something and go home and no one listens. So this is where we need to see actionable dialogues, which is not happening. So again, we will stick to our previous recommendation. Meaningful participation is one of the most important things that needs to happen within the Eritrean opposition movements. Before, Dr. Professor Araya was mentioning that Eritrean groups are fragmented. We are not speaking in one voice. Yes, I think, like I was hearing from a number of speakers before me, yes, we are divided. Yeah, we are fragmented. But we actually don't look, why are we divided? Why are we fragmented? We need to look at the issues that causes our fragmentation. And it was mentioned from a number of previous speakers, our grievances, we all have grievances, we all have concerns, we were all affected by PFDJ, but we were not equally affected. And we actually never listened to each other. And listening to each other, it's a very painful process, but this is a process that we need to take very serious in the future. Entering into actionable dialogue for all groups. Seeking gender equality means for news and our members is not only about bringing change to women, but also social inclusion. We want to look that women and youth and other groups are equally represented. But to do so, people have to be part of all processes all processes. Not if we keep coming only when the processes are about to end, we will never be able to participate and bring a meaningful contribution to what is needed. So it was mentioned that we are not equally affected, or we were not equally affected by the government. That's why we need to sit together and listen to each other. I always recommend actually a mapping of actors mapping, and so civil society mapping is very crucial at this point, because this will help us to identify what are actually what are the different institutions doing and where is the gaps. We have sometimes very highly personalized civil society with very little transparency and very little knowledge about how these organizations are governed. And and then something was mentioned like trust. Trust is a major issue among us. And this is also caused because there is lack of transparency in the way we do things. Yeah.
Asena,
yes.
to wrap up.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think with regards to gender and women equality, we still stick to our approach of meaningful participation, especially because this is our second time to participate in such a conference organized by Eritrea Focus, and all these have been said before. This is nothing new. What I'm telling you is nothing new. That's why please forgive me if I keep repeating myself, but this is the reality. Look at these, all the participants. We have maybe 60 people. Maybe 10 of them are women. And so it is advisable to look into these issues and how you can actually involve youth, women, refugee meaningfully. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Asia, for that presentation, which is very useful and important, in fact, to include women, the youth, and other segments of our community. Thank you. And now over to Dr. Mohammed Khair, and I hope you follow Asia's precedence in sticking to the 8-minute time limit. Thank you.
Okay, Abdurrahman, can you allow me to share my screen? Because it is disabled. Okay, the technician will have to allow that, but it's a good idea that you can share your screen, I'm sure. Who is the technician?
It's Paolo. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, please.
Can you raise your hand for me? So there are about 6 people to find you out.
Okay, Dr. Mohammed Khair, raise your hand. I think there are so many. Mohammed Khair, can you see the name Mohammed Khair?
I found him. Him. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? Go ahead.
Share your screen.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. Beautiful.
Okay. I just want to. Yes. Many times, a number of times, people ask me to give a lecture, have an interview, etc. And normally the last few years I have declined to do that because I think we have said almost everything, but we have not put it into practice. And I was hesitant when Tsai asked me to do this, but later I took the challenge. So I call it working, not working together for a common cause. But let me start with something simple that provokes people. If people cannot say your name, it begins like that. If you have a Muslim name, Muhammad, Ahmad, etc., people would not say your name. So you feel like the people are really not interested because it begins from there. So please be sensitive in saying the name of a person correctly. The aim of this is not to dwell on the past or to just put blames. And it is just to avoid making mistakes again and again. As they say, history does not repeat itself, but people keep repeating themselves again and again. And it's also to look into the past and move on. We talk a lot about working together, but we don't need to be one. We don't need to be one organization, etc. But we can have a common platform for a common cause. So that's also important, I think. The main challenges that we face, and as I was talking about, is that for me, accepting and appreciating diversity in practice. It is common. We say Eritrea is multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural. I would add it is plural, politically plural.
Sorry, can I interrupt you for 1 second? I think your slides are not coordinated with your. We only seen the first page.
Really? Okay.
Do you want to make it on a? Just play it on the screen.
Okay. Can you see it now?
If you go on the bottom of your screen on the right hand, you can see the.
You can click the display.
You can make it full screen.
I see you are. You say you are sharing screen. So where should I click?
Yeah, in your PowerPoint, there is a little window by the right-hand side, right here at the end. There is the display for your PowerPoint. Just
that one.
Yeah, but I did that.
Yeah, okay, then leave it because some of the PowerPoint has got an issue.
Can you see it now?
It should come a little bit while. Yeah.
Yeah,
now it's better, I think.
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Yeah, khalas, thank you. Yeah, because sometimes it takes time to synchronize. So.
Okay. So we have this problem. So we say we are diverse, etc., but we don't put it into practice. And then we have this culture of exclusion, culture of negation, and culture of some organizations, they feel they know everything and you just have to follow them. And then we have this defining Eritrea from a very narrow prism, from your ethnic point of view, from your language point of view, from your cultural point of view. But I see this has all historical roots, so if you look at them, it can help us. In my understanding, there are two main cultural components, and I am maybe a little bit oversimplifying this, what I call the Arabic Islamic, and I am talking about the elites now, which range from who advocate, who would say, for example, Eritrea is an Arab country, etc., it's an Islamic country, to those who would just want to see Arabic as a language in Eritrea, one of the languages. And then I think the Tigrinya, Christian, mainly Orthodox, Abyssinian trend, and we see it in history all the time. And this is from those who range from saying Tigrinya is the only language in Eritrea, like the Agazian, etc., to those who would like to see Tigrinya and Arabic, and to those who would like to see not Arabic, but they would like to see other Eritrean languages. So it is a prism. In between, we have a mix of ethnic and regional components, and there has always been in our history some subtle struggle between these two. And then the different migration routes, for example, Eritreans during the Federation period, and afterwards, most of the highlanders went to Ethiopia, and most of the lowlanders, Muslims, went to Iran, etc. So this has also widened the gap. But there were attempts, early attempts at working together, like the Muslim League and the liberal progressive parties were really working together during the Federation, during the time when we were defining our national interests. And then an independence bloc was formed in 1949 when the division of Eritrea between Sudan and Egypt and Ethiopia failed. And then after the Federation, people accepted it and they formed this democratic front. And the main leaders were Ibrahim Sultan and Ras Hassan Asbaro. More recently, we had this broad alliance of Eritrean National Conference for Democratic Change held in Ethiopia in 2011. And I have learned quite a lot of things from it when people were very tense, but when they started to talk about the grievances, then things cooled down. But I'm sorry to say that this was looked like having close ties to the Wayane, and perhaps now working with the Wayane becomes simpler because Masfin Hagos is there. And then we have this Yakil and Kifaya movement at present, which is a good one. And then we have this 2020 manifesto, which was mentioned earlier. And in elements of ancient history, it is like people feel like when people talk about Eritrea, it is just about or Eritrea, Ethiopia, they talk about the Tigrinya in the north and north of Ethiopia and Tigrinya in Eritrea, and also about this Aksumite or the precursor to the Aksumite kingdom. But we have 4 main groups in my division, which I call the Beja Tigre Belt, which has also history that goes from 4000 BC, which had 6 kingdoms, and it's well documented in Aliavobi and other historians from the region. Well, then we have the Afar. Maybe not many people know that they had independent sultanates, and they had 19 agreements with foreign powers. If you don't have the right to that land, you cannot make an agreement with a foreign power. And a book about this is Dr. Hashim's book, The History of the Afar. And then you have the Aksumite kingdom, which was the strongest in its time, from 100 Common Era to 900 Common Era. And then you have the Kunama and Nara also, where you find them in very early texts. So I think, and then you have other groups within those also. So I think we should appreciate and accept these histories as our own. And then I look at the role of youth and women. I have been working with youth particularly for a long time. So the Arab Spring generated a lot of Eritreans getting involved in Facebook, Paltalk rooms, radio programs, etc., robot calls, and now we have satellite TV. And one of the challenges is that people are divided by geography with varying degrees of freedom. For example, if you live in the Middle East, there is no freedom of expression. And if you live in the Westlands, and mainly we are divided by language, Arabic and Tigrinya mainly, and the other languages. And I think we need to solve this problem. For example, if we have, like we invest on this language transmission, direct transmission, in the future we can have gadgets. So I can put my earphones and listen in Tigrinya or in Arabic or in English or whatever language we have. I think it's very important because it is limiting our contacts. And then we are divided by issues of contention, I say. Perception of a regime. Is it an ethnocratic regime? Is it a dictatorial regime? Shall we have a peaceful or any form of struggle? Shall we coordinate with Tigray because no more Ethiopia is now, or not? Shall we focus on regime change or address future Eritrea first? Shall we aim for a centralized or a decentralized state? Then there are issues of Tigrinization of the society in terms of everything is in Tigrinya. The regime says it is go wherever you go. So if you don't know Tigrinya, it will be a problem. Then we have this systematic settlements in land and refugees. I think it was raised in the other groups also. And then there is the issue, accept 1997 constitution or not. Some people might take it as simple, now we accept it. There are others who don't accept it. So we have to take into that account. And then the women participation is very low, and thanks, Asia has elaborated a lot on that, so I don't need to. And Asia, the Abdelkader Saleh and
Okay, is it only mine or Muhammad Khair is stuck? Cannot hear.
Yeah, I think he's stuck, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Muhammad Khair, if you can hear us. He's almost towards the end of his presentation. If not, we can move to this to the next speaker, I think, and then during answer and question, maybe you can elaborate on those topics or slides that has been left out. Our technician, would you be able to let us move to the next speaker? Mr. Technician?
Yeah, just give us 1 sec.
Okay.
Paulos, if you can give further a co-host, please.
So we need to stop the screen share of Muhammad Khair.
He did, right?
Yeah, we did already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's Salah Ibrahim, isn't it, Abdulrahman?
The next speaker now, can we invite Muhammad Khair? If you can hear us, I think there was something wrong with your network. So we hope to elaborate on your remaining slides, around 2 or 3 of them, during the question and answer time. So we will move on to Dr. Salah Ibrahim Jim'a from Australia, my good friend. Tfadal, mic is yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you very well. We can hear and see you as well.
Shukran Abu Hashim. Salam alaikum. Hello everyone. Also, I will share my screen. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen now.
You need to be enabled, so you need to. Our technician have a look for.
Yeah, it's done. It's ready.
Done. Excellent.
Go for it.
All right. Yep. Okay.
All right. Shukran.
All right. I will share now. Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's coming out. It just takes a little bit of time to synchronize, so you're okay.
All right.
Now we can see you, so just enlarge your screen.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if everybody can, yeah. Okay, perfect. Well
All
done.
right. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, my name is Salah Jimmy. My topic today is societal pluralization and resolution. Initially, I thought about a topic, conflict and conflict resolution. And then I said to myself, well, we Eritreans didn't have a conflict, a major conflict. For the time being, if you just ignore the civil war between our rebel groups, so as society, as people, we didn't have conflict. That's a very important point to start with. And then basically my theme is centered around these 2 points. I'm saying starting together, working together. That doesn't mean, or I'm not against individual or group initiative. But when we talk about big national issues, we need to start together. So that builds trust and confidence. And then the second point is on top of rule of law, democracy, peace, justice, we talk about all these, but we don't seem to mention social justice. When I say social justice here, I'm not thinking about one group, but I'm thinking about all Eritreans. Okay, so keep that in mind. My outline is basically centered around 3 questions. The first one is why we haven't worked together for a long time. Here I'm referring to Eritreans in diaspora. I'm not thinking about people inside the country. And then the second question is, why do we need to work together? And then the third question is, how can we work together? So basically, we need to answer, I'm trying to answer these 3 questions. Okay, so the first part is why we haven't worked together. Okay, so first let's put it into general context. There is always a feeling of injustice in most developing countries, and including Eritrea, but this is not a problem of only developing countries. It's a problem even of developed countries. And for example, Black Lives Matter. It's a very clear, it's fueled by injustice. Then in Eritrea, we have a big problem, and that's to do with the self-styled autocratic leader we have. He is non-reconciliatory leader. So he further complicated our problem. So always, as we know, when he makes, when he is making interview with the local media, he always blames others rather than talking about the problems Eritreans are facing. So that's the big challenge we have at the moment. And unfortunately, he's a powerful leader. He's a powerful leader. No one is able to challenge him even from inside. So that is big problem for us Eritreans to move together or to challenge the system. All right, so if I'm putting why the Eritrean people are not working together. Again, I'm thinking about people outside the country. There is this feeling of historical injustice. I'm not going to blame one or another, and even I'm not going to go deep in the given time, but there is this feeling of historical injustice. Then we all know the legacy of our armed struggle. It also horrendously failed to unite the Eritrean people. And these are unfortunate developments that we know. I'm not going to go into this, but I only highlighted the last one and why it's important for us now. Just like a year ago, this issue of Syriat Addis came into the discussion on social media, and those who are, we call justice seekers, they all disagreed. They forgot their priority, and they focused on this one for really a good 2 weeks' time, you could say, and they really disagreed. So this, we need to avoid them. We need to avoid these historical difficult issues. It's not for the daily political discourse. We need to keep them away. And I will explain why. Then after independence, we also faced many challenges. You could read here, but I will just, post-independence, people have the feeling one component of the Eritrean society, basically power concentrated on one section of the society. And does that mean the whole section of that society, that group should be blamed? No, big no. And then also people feel like there is discrimination, and this is institutionalized discriminatory policies. Again, you have the example of scholarship to South Africa. People really felt ill about that. And then also there are people who think between 1991 and 2000, injustice was skewed against Muslims, against minority Christians, other minority groups, and also people who dissent against the regime. Of course, this, I'm not saying here, major Christian groups allowed this to happen or were happy about it. But it's the regime which used it to divide the society. And it's also to divide the society and control it. After the G15 event, then the president got crazy. He just didn't expect people who worked with him to say to him, to tap him and say him, you just heading in the wrong direction. Then he got mad. He got mad and just started to indiscriminately commit injustice against all. Also, it's important to say that, I don't know about the timeline, but also after 2001, you could say the Eritrean youth of Tigrinya descent, I would say, they suffered more. They suffered more. And we know it. We know it because their final destination is always to Europe. And in between, they suffered a lot. So we need to keep that into mind. But these all claims need to be substantiated by evidence, okay? Then if we keep going, there is this issue of system versus individuals. I'm really against this idea. There are individuals who were part of the system, they leave the system, and they are finding it difficult to join the opposition because sometimes we try to criminalize them. Injustice is committed by the system. Some individuals were part of it, whether they like it or not. Sometimes they didn't have the power to stop the injustice, That point is making it difficult for us to work together. And it is important not to focus on it now. Let's work all together. Later, there will be a process, not revenge, but justice. And I think there are people who specialize in this area, all the transitional justice and social justice. Again, there is this ongoing prejudice now happening on social media, demonization, regionalism, hate mongering is happening, but again, it's few minority. They are few minority, but they make noise. That one is also dividing the Eritrean society, dividing us, and it's one reason why we're not working together. Add to that, at the moment, we don't have a role model. We don't have team leadership. We don't have charismatic leaders who really unite us. So that's also contributing to our problem. So at the end, what's the outcome of this polarization? We are divided. We need to acknowledge that. We are divided, say, along ethnic lines or religious lines. And that's one of the reasons why we're not working together. The situation inside Eritrea, it's better because of the tolerant culture of the Eritrean people. The Eritrean people live it together. They are not divided inside the country. Okay, some ways we could say it's because of reality of living under the dictator. True. But I'm optimistic. Although post-dictatorship, the situation may change, but I am optimistic. The Eritrean people suffered together. They all suffered under this extreme oppression. And there is a hope because they have this common experience, which is oppression. This will be a uniting factor. So now I move to the second question. Why do we need to work together?
You have very short few minutes to...
all right, so basically I will leave them. It's like stating the obvious. We basically need to work together. Otherwise, we'll never succeed. For nearly 30 years now, post-independence, we talked, but we never been together. We haven't worked together in an effective way. So it's just, we're not making any success. Now, how can we work together? We need to avoid this political dogma because we seem to always think inside a box. We always think about national unity. And whenever we have some fringe groups talking about their grievances, we try to externalize the problem. It's an internal problem. People are talking about grievances. If we try to come together and engage these identity groups, as long as they are not extremist in their view, as long as they don't pose any threat to the territorial integrity of Eritrea, we should bring them together in an umbrella. We should be able to talk to them rather than externalizing the problem. We always say, oh, these are agents of this, blah, blah, blah. I don't think. It's an internal issue. Okay, then who is the national, who can bring us together? Really those who think, really those who understand the needs of all sections of the Eritrean society. We really need to leaders who can think big and who try to bring all together. Then we have this issue, people talk about them. These are issues of tomorrow, but still they are dividing us. One of them is whether a national umbrella or political parties. At the moment, we have people who think they have broad base, but they don't have broad base. It's better if all of us come to a national umbrella. through consensus. Political consensus is important. Abdurrahman Said was mentioning that at the start. I always believe now and even for the first few years in post-dictatorship, we will not have something called general election. Just forget it. We're not ready for it. We don't have the institutions. So what we need is political consensus. We all sit together and agree on the big issues. Once we have that, then we can move on. Also, we need to acknowledge that at the moment, inside Eritrea, there is oppression. Once this pressure is lifted, you don't know, armed groups may emerge. So this could be a problem to smooth transition. So also that can be at least overcome or minimized if we have political consensus. We have this issue. We seem to mix. We don't identify ourselves. Sometimes we behave like politicians, sometimes like members of civic societies, sometimes like people of academia. I think if we just think carefully and see where we fit. If you are a political leader, make sure you work for all. Make sure you don't be a polarizer. Those civil rights groups, it's okay if some advocate for some groups. It's their rights, as long as they don't infringe upon the rights of others and so forth. And academics, we need these people to step back and feed us with facts. If we mix all this, we are in trouble. All right. So political leaders need to make a stand against injustice, reject any polarization, educate members of Abdurrahman, I'm finishing here. I have still maybe 20 slides. My focus was on social justice, but look, I'm not going to take the time of everyone. So my conclusion is, yes, we want rule of law. Without rule of law, we can't do anything. We want democracy, but what kind of democracy? We want justice, but what kind of justice? Is it revenge or it's justice? And then finally, it's not only rule of law and democracy. What we need is social justice. That's a big concept. We need a separate lecture for that one. But social justice, basically, I'm thinking about all Eritreans who are left behind. I'm not thinking about one region or one ethnic group or one religion. In Eritrea, there are people who are left behind. Just how to empower them, how to bring them up. It's a big issue, which will be basically through Social Justice Commission. So my point today is, if we give some confidence to those who are concerned about their small group, no. In democratic Eritrea, when Eritrea is ruled by rule of law, there will be equal rights. On top of equal rights, there will be social justice. Means those who are left behind because of injustices, they will be supported. They will be supported to catch up with the rest of the population. I think I stop here, Abdurrahman.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salah, for that food for thought, I would call it. And I love the Social Justice Commission, which is really important. So the type of commissions that, or one of those that we will need to secure a smooth transition, hopefully, from the current status of lawlessness to a rule of law and just society, inshallah.
Yep.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll move straight to our next speaker, Mr. Fikre Gaim. If he's ready, mic is yours. And Salah, you can unshare your screen
Yeah,
and then we'll come back to Dr. Mohammed Khair just to finish off his slides, maybe briefly in 1 minute, and we'll have the question and answer sessions.
I would also like to share a screen if possible. If you can make me a co-host, that would be appreciated.
Okay, is it the screen? Is it the yeah?
game.
Okay, I mean because
Fikra game, can you speak so he can see you?
Yes, I'm right here.
Paulus, you can search the names from the find participants.
Yeah, co-host now. That's fine. I was not looking for. I thought it was. I already. I thought I had the PowerPoint myself because Dr. Fasai sent it. But it's all yours.
Yeah, you did have it. Do you guys see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, you can see it. Well done. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much. This is really a great honor for me to be in front of you here virtually to present my ideas on how to work together. I will just rush it because I see that there is some constraint in time. So I'll just have, I'll just jump to some of the slides. So just a highlight here. This is not any news to anybody that's in this room. With the number of political parties, civic organizations, satellite televisions, inefficiency, unoptimized services in the satellite sense, and then the political parties and civic organizations, even multiple political movements, including the IACO. And this current situation, the Eritrea being in crossroads, really, in the crisis, what we do now really determines what we can get for our next generation. We don't even know if we have a sovereign country in a couple of years if we continue to go the route that we are going right now. With indefinite national service, hundreds of thousands of refugees, youths dying in the Sahara, COVID-related hunger now happening in Eritrea as we speak, social media campaign targeting our youth to really to mislead their identity. Every Eritrean is directly or indirectly impacted by the situation. And yet, we could not find a solution yet. We could not have our political parties work together, our civic organizations, civic and human rights organizations to consolidate and create synergy so that they can support the number of Eritreans that need help. But why are we in this situation? A few things, and I'm not here to point fingers, but some of the things that come to mind when you think of the opposition, when you look at it, especially from the outside, is the reason why it has not so far brought change that the Eritrean people really needed is the competition for power among the leaders, unable to work together and failure to compromise, out of touch with the young generation, really some of the political leaders that we have been serving us for so long, and they have been out of touch from their own homes for about 4 decades, and some of them. But here we are here to find solutions, not necessarily to point fingers. Sorry. So what did that produce for us? It produces a number of political parties increases. The disengagement of our silent majority also increases. Political ambiguity, mistrust, hopelessness among the Eritrean population. Inefficient use of human and financial capital, really foreign governments and organizations not knowing who is a viable alternative. And now, even though they know the regime in Asmara is really a dictator, but they still sometimes choose because they couldn't find an alternative. And the youth lost sense of pride, sense of national identity, because the country that was given to them as independent was not really, it did not operate like independent. They did not see their fathers, they did not see, they did not grow up in a household like many of you here grew up, and they have resentment against, they don't know who, against their aunts, their uncles, maybe. I'm not going to spend some time here, but what I was trying to show here is the political environment in Eritrea, what might have created the current mistrust that we have. But this is an expert group here, so I'm not going to spend time on this one. Trust seems to be the main issue. Systematic mistrust that was created by the government, for example, between the freedom fighters and the civilians, the Yikalo and the war side, the educated and non-educated, among political movements, among ethnic groups, among religious groups. And this chart, what I try to show is the population, and mind you, the number here may not be correct for 2009, that's the source that I found. But what I try to show is the percentage of Eritreans that actually were born after independence. 68% of the Eritrean population was born after independence, and only 32% were born before that. If you look at the ALF and the TLF split, 89% of our population today was born before, after that split. So when I think about this, 52% of the population, it's been almost 19, 20 years since I left the country. So more than half of the population of the Eritreans were born after I left the country, and 76% of the population was 76% of the population only know Isiat as a region. If you show here the leadership, the current leadership that we have in the government, including political parties, if we add them up, they don't even make up about 3 or 4% of the population. All the majority of the population here have been subjected to the cruel leadership of Isiat Afwerki, and unfortunately, we have not been able to find a solution yet. So I'm proposing a couple of solutions here to create a powerful united movement, engage and empower our citizens now, not in the future, focus on the empowerment of the youth and women, start a national dialogue and reconciliation process. What I try to show here is that building trust at a very local, at an individual level, local community, city level. We are coming from different directions, but again, we live in cities, and then in those cities, we could find a common ground, a common community where we're able to get together to discuss national affairs, not sub-national, ethnic, religious, but national agendas. And at a city level, and I'm showing a model for Yakal as an example. We have a city that composed of many Eritreans that came about. The Yakal, first of all, is not something that's new. That's something that has been said many times, but it's only last year that it mobilized more people because of the anger that the Eritreans felt. And it's really not owned by the people that are necessarily volunteering to run it, but by everybody, by every Eritrean, all political parties, all civic movements. So we have currently 41 cities in the United States, and in the global Yakal currently have about 7 to start with. But the goal here, what I'm trying to show in this chart is the movement. We cannot have multiple political parties, multiple ethnic-based, religious-based, and other secular, and then multiple other civic organizations dismantling, not dismantling necessarily, but using the resources inefficiently. I think what we need to really have a solution in Eritrea, a quick solution, and also something that we can all guarantee and cooperate to create is a movement from inside, a movement from outside. I'm just giving examples here. Sankal and Yakal being the diaspora movement, and then Sankal being the inside Eritrea movement, and then we create a united Eritrean movement for justice. And the way I'm thinking about the Yakal movement is not necessarily something that's completely separate from all organizations, but something that complements, something that encompass every other organization that has fought for justice in Eritrea. And this would include political parties, civic organizations, professionals and scholars, media, individual influential Eritreans, and other friends of Eritrea. And that Yaku movement could be owned by everybody. Every Eritrean would be a stakeholder, would have a collective strategy, a unified mission for democratic transition. The key has to be, we give our people a choice between justice and oppression. Right now, the silent majority don't have a choice. They don't know what to choose. There is so many organizations that they cannot name. I cannot, for God's sake, I cannot even name, even after working several months or even over a year with political parties closely. I cannot name all of them and I cannot know the differences. So we make it easier for our people between justice and oppression. The government would symbolize the oppression, and the justice would be represented by the united front, the united movement that we can create, all of us here. This is an example of how the global YACL is working right now. We have 7 countries, and we are just establishing a framework for an actual global leadership, global YACL establishment. It's not established yet. It's an initiative to establish it. But we have presence in Denmark, France, Germany. I mean, not Germany, Sweden, Switzerland, and England. This is just a beginning of a bigger global initiative to come, and it's a plan for a conference. It's to continue to fight for justice, coordinated media campaign, effective humanitarian support. One experiment that we've done that was effective was, due to the COVID-19, we were able to mobilize our people. Some people from even the government supporters contributed to those funds so that we can help our refugees in Sudan and Ethiopia. So the goal is not necessarily to stay in those 7 countries, but every country, every Eritrean in all over the world to combine, join hands, to elect global leadership that can create diplomatic synergy, optimize human and financial capital. It becomes easier to fund funding sources and support each other, coordinate media campaign, effective humanitarian support, and links with the FUNCL, whatever inside country movement is. Eritrean professionals and scholars will play a big role here as well. So this is to show that every Eritrean that has been a victim of the systemic suppression of the government, whether they have been away for a long time or more recently, could be solved by united effort. And what I try to show here is the fight for democratic change during the transition period in the institution building and then democratic Eritrea here. So in the fight for democratic change, where we find ourselves today, if we join hands and find a way to own the YACL movement, as I said earlier, nobody owns but the people. Nobody owns but the organizations in the civic movement, but everybody that's in this house that have contributed so much in your life to create the momentum that we are using right now. So the YACL movement could be a face that fights against the PFDJ alongside all other organizations, political parties, media, professionals and scholars, and civic organizations. The key would be each entity and the individual have to know their roles and in different phases of the democratic transition period here. I'm just giving percentages here. These are not necessarily set in stone, but during the transition period, the scholars would have maybe more share of the government so that they can establish, while the political parties are preparing their work, but they still get some share. And all other Eritreans and civic organizations also get share in the government. In the transition, in the institution building period, we'll have more influence by political parties. By then, the constitution would have been approved and written and ratified, and the professionals and civic organizations will also play a role. At the democratic Eritrea, we see more political parties take more ownership and leadership, and professional civic organizations. And if you see the YACL also is consistently all over, but its role diminishes, but still stays because it plans to safeguard the change that comes and make sure that whoever comes to power does not hijack the power again from the people, but the IACL does not have an intention to compete for power, as you can see here, or to become part of the government. So the second point, I'll rush it now. The second point that I want to bring up here is, in addition to creating a united front, we need to engage and empower our citizens today, now. We cannot promise our citizens that we will fight for justice for them and will deliver power and democracy to them at some point in the future. I think democracy has to be handed today. They have to be empowered today, and they have to be engaged today so that we can have a smooth transition, a smooth, sustainable process. I'll just jump to youth and women empowerment. Women make 50% of our population, and yet the participation we saw here today, and we see that in many meetings. We talk about it, we don't do much about it. But I think if we don't empower women, their impact to family and society and the sustainable national prosperity cannot be undermined. And the youth is also the same. The people in the room that have been fighting for this country for so long have a country that has to go forward into future generations. And if we don't empower the youth today, if we don't have a secure future for them, develop them, mentor them, we cannot have the country. We cannot have the country that we dreamed of, that our fathers have worked for so many.
Okay, can you wrap up?
Yeah, I'll just wrap it up.
Thank you.
So really, the education and personal development for mentorship and coaching for leaders. The final point that I want to make is reconciliation, the dialogue and reconciliation. There is mistrust, obviously, whether it's real or perceived. There is mistrust among political parties, among generations, even the older generation, the younger generation. I don't know whether everybody can see that or not, but there is a clear mistrust between the religious and regions may not be as real as it seems on social media, but even if it's perceived, it does have a destructive impact. If you look at the historical, I'm not going to give historical perspective, but we've not had, for over a century, we have had a traumatic experience with no single decade with peace and prosperity. And we have not had a chance to actually have an opportunity for healing with open dialogue and reconciliation. When you have a traumatized country like Eritrea, the people that have been through so much, including with their own leaders, anybody can scratch the wounds and create mistrust even in the future. So the solution, we must understand that we are all here victims of systematic oppression, and we need to act accordingly. And there is multi-layer that we can use. There is a family, political, but then the higher level would be a national dialogue and reconciliation. If we don't do that, we cannot have a dialogue and reconciliation just for political gain. It has to be a core principle to actually find a solution, a real peace, harmony, and prosperity for our country, and it has to start now. And it's not a luxury; it's a necessity for our democracy to be sustainable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Fikret, for that food for thought again. And very interesting points there, especially around the statistics, which I really found very eye-opener. Those born before and after independence, before and after the split of the ELF, PLF, or a PLF dichotomy. But thank you very much. And